Hey everyone, it's Sarah, the elder millennial.
And this is Bill, the infant boomer. Welcome to Strengths on Fire, the podcast for strengths enthusiasts who want to have fun while leveling up.
Get ready for a mix of powerful insights, unexpected stories, and plenty of laughs along the way. Hey Bill, you want to light these strengths on fire?
Sarah, let's light it up! Well, good morning, Sarah. How are you?
Well, hello, Mr. Dipple. I'm doing honestly fine.
Are you? Are you?
I'm not great, but I am here.
We had a little moment this morning.
I've got a sick kid and I'm traveling tomorrow. And my son has really shared his germs with me. And so I am just so nervous that I'm going to be sick. So I've spent the majority of my morning being like, am I okay? I'm okay. Am I okay? I'm okay. To say that I called in a prescription for Zofran should tell you everything you need to know because I am so paranoid. I have to wake up at like 1:30 in the morning to drive to Omaha to get on a plane. And I'm like, oh my God, if I wake up and I am throwing up, I'm like, that is going to be terrible. So, honestly, everything is fine, but I'm just like a little anxious, more anxious than normal. And I smell like a spray tan.
So you're ready. You are ready to travel, right? Ready to go, right?
That's right.
Our arsonists now know that Sarah's on a travel. And by the way, letting our listeners know, we've actually taken a week or two off recently. So we're ramping in, coming back online. So we haven't seen each other in a while. And I'm just going to say, Sarah, kudos to you on the hair.
Oh my God, thank you. I just got it done
for
my trip. I went a little lighter.
I always claim Sarah's the best hair in the coaching business, but now we got a little blonde highlighting going on. I'm smitten.
Well,
I'm just saying.
Everyone needs to head to the YouTube so they can see this cute, fresh hair I have. Unfortunately, it's not only blonder because I'm going to Mexico and I wanted to, have that blonde sun and fun in the sun. But my hair is going very gray. And it turns out if you would like to keep your gray hair covered, you need to put some blonde highlights in there because the darker you go, the more you can see that. So just a more blonder Sarah coming to you to hide the old age that is fastly creeping into my body.
Yeah, I gave up, as you can tell. I'm ready. It's okay.
Well, we're different generations. Like you're of the generation.
Wow. I can't. I'm going to need some help today and I'm going to get it. So that's good news. Hey, so with a sick kid, I got a question for you. Like if you have the sick kid and you got to stay home, you got to make sure things are going on. What's your guilty pleasure TV show or movie that you're embarrassed to admit you love?
Oh, okay. Well, I would not be able to watch anything with my child that I would love, probably.
Let's just say kids down. You're just there making sure.
Sleeping.
Yeah.
Okay.
Guilty pleasure. TV show, movie. I'm just curious where you're going.
Oh, so interesting. Part of it is I don't know that I would ever be ashamed to admit it because I find the best bonding opportunities with other people when I'm like, do you watch this show? So like, I love the show Tell Me Lies, which I've talked about before. There's a lot of like sexy time in that show. So it could be kind of embarrassing to admit, but not for me. I watched Game of Thrones, and that's like fantasy show.
Oh, can't
kind
be
of
embarrassed
embarrassing.
about that.
Not for
that's
me.
A great show. So,
I just don't think that there's anything embarrassing. Guilty pleasure. I don't know. I'm not like one to like rewatch a movie. I would say during this time of year, I always rewatch The Holiday. It's a classic,
Yeah. My wife and I rewatch Love Actually most Christmassy years, right around this time. I get that, but that's not guilty pleasure for me.
No.
I would say on my end, guilty pleasure wise for me is like every now and then my wife and I will get looped into watching Love is Blind.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Where you just don't want to admit.
Like reality show.
You don't want to admit I'm sitting here watching people that can't see each other decide if they're going to get married. But we watch 2 episodes and then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, they shouldn't be together. I have to see the disaster. right?
That's the problem is I don't watch reality shows, but the
Yeah.
dumb thing I do is I listen to podcasts who watch reality shows and then recap it.
Oh
So
my
I don't
God.
watch Vanderpump Rules. I don't watch Love is Blind, but I kind of know what's happening
Oh
because
my.
they are talking about it. I'm
Oh
a
my.
content fiend.
Oh my.
I like content on content of content I've never even watched. I mean, it's ridiculous.
And I am now listening to more and more podcasts because of Sarah. I texted her. I listened to like 6 podcast episodes of another podcast this weekend just because Sarah recommended it and I'm loving it. I don't shout out. Should I? I mean,
I think we're fine to shout it out.
it's huge. So it's not like they're
Yeah.
going to care that I shout them out. Right. But it's Smartless.
Yeah.
And I've been listening to it. So, Jeff, I cut you off when I was going to mention my Love is Blind serial addiction. What were you coming in with there?
Oh, it was kind of different, but I was going to say one thing I really enjoy about Sarah is nothing embarrasses her, so she can just put it out there, and that's great to get those conversations rolling.
I love Jeff.
Do you have a guilty pleasure, Jeff?
Jeff, what do you watch? Come on.
If there's some kind of action kind of show, I will like that. Let's see. I don't know if it's a guilty pleasure. What I'm watching right now is Landman on Paramount.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty good.
We've watched Yellowstone, and there are so many commercials for Landman.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Now, I will say
Jeff, I've watched every episode of Landman so far, right? And we watched the last one a couple nights ago, and my wife said, I don't think I like this. It's like we got like 5 episodes in or whatever we're at right now, and my wife's suddenly like, I don't think I like this. Because we watch, Sarah, like you, we watch Yellowstone, love it, right? Really like it. And I'm enjoying Landman, not nearly as much as Yellowstone, but so Jeff,
I'm a Yellowstone fan also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my wife really likes like the Hallmark movies, so once in a while I'll watch some of those with her.
Yeah.
This time of year, the Hallmark Christmas movies.
Yeah. You get looped in? You're in when they're on?
You can usually tell in about 5 minutes what's going to happen. I'll usually say that, and then I'll probably get shunned out of the room.
Yeah. I tell you what, I feel a budding bromance between you two today.
Oh, it's coming.
I feel like there's going to be a lot of, synergy.
It started in the pre-show.
Let me introduce our guest. Today we have with us Jeff Jewell. Jeff is the first vice president of wealth management at Union Bank and Trust, and he is a client of mine. He also does some coaching on the side, and so I get to talk to him and hear about his journey in that arena as well. And I am just so delighted to have him. He has a great reputation. He is very intentional and deliberative about what he does. He's a great leader. I've worked with his people for about 2 years now, and I have never heard anyone say anything but great, amazing things about Jeff as their leader. He is intentional, he's thoughtful, he's curious, he's kind. He really is the whole package as leaders go. So he's been great to work with for me, and I'm just delighted that he gets to join us today on our pod. Hi, Jeff.
Hello. Well, I'm kind of blushing and embarrassed now after that, but I really appreciate it, Sarah. Thank you for the invite. I am looking forward to talking to you both today and diving into strengths. And thank you so much for that.
And I'm super excited to have Jeff on because in the pre-show, Jeff and I compared notes about age, and we mutually agreed it's a day to pick on Sarah. So we are, we are very excited that finally, this age group gets some representation on the show. And Sarah, we might be able to keep up with Sarah and make sure that I am not beat up as always, as I believe Jeff pointed out on this show regularly. So I'm anxious to see what kind of assist Jeff's going to throw me today. So
you're saying that this show is going to be extra. Get it? Generation.
Oh, yeah.
X.
There you go. We're too old, Sarah. It took us a while to get there.
Unfortunately, Jeff, I've been hanging out with Sarah enough. I got it when she said it, and I was like, dad. Basically, a young person dad joke is what that is.
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, totally.
I get it. So, actually, and Jeff, before we're going to ask you some questions to jump right in about where you are and what you do. But can you remind us of your top 10 right before you tell us that story? So as our people are listening to it, they can kind of listen for those clues as to what you bring and what those top 10 themes are for you and then you can dive right into how did you get to where you are? What was the road and the path to being a VP at a pretty nice bank, and what was the path to coaching perhaps like?
Okay, sure. Yeah, my top 10 strengths are relator, responsibility, arranger, belief, individualization, learner, achiever, significance, deliberative, and discipline. And because I have some of those in my top 10, I'm cheating and I'm reading them off of my list instead of going from memory. So I have spent most all of my career in the same organization, and it's a great organization, and I've had the ability to be in a lot of different roles, and in a lot of different areas, even though I've been in the same organization. I've been in a leadership role since I was about 25 or 26, so quite a long time. Although looking back, like I had no idea what I was doing in a leadership role at that point in my career, and still learn that every day. But it's one of those things for me in terms of there's been times in my career where I've thought about going to different organizations or taking different roles and different jobs, but there's always been a new opportunity. And honestly, it's a great organization to work for, and I've seen a lot of growth there, both myself and the organization. So it's been a great journey. I now we're a financial institution, and now we have a wealth management division. I now oversee the kind of the operations and tax and finance functions in in that division, but also involved in a lot of different areas in the organization as well. And as Sarah mentioned, I also do some coaching and consulting. Several years ago, well, I've always kind of wanted to do my own thing, just never knew for sure what it was. And it started several years ago. I can't really pinpoint it. It wasn't like an aha moment, but people just started coming to me for advice, and then people would send other people to me advice and coaching, and then HR would start sending people to me, and pretty soon I like, oh, this might be a thing. And then I mentored in one of our startup accelerators here locally, and that kind of led it, kind of sparked it for me to go do some of this in addition to my corporate role at the bank. And I work, now I'm executive coach and work with small business owners for one, but also work with leaders and organizations, and focus a lot on folks dealing with imposter syndrome. I've found a lot of success working with those folks, and I've experienced a lot myself in my career, so I have some sense of what they're dealing with. So, but I will say when I first became a leader, and a little bit after that, like I did not like it. But now it's just complex, as you know, like leading people is a complex thing, but it's my favorite thing now. I really enjoy it. Really enjoy helping people grow. And kind of that's where I'm at now. My career is more about helping other people grow in whatever way I can do that.
Wow.
Yeah. I just love hearing you talk about that. Can you believe that being put in the leadership position at 25 and working there, and just having to grow that skill set? It's pretty incredible. And you've accomplished a great feat because you really are a great leader. And I think even becoming a coach, because basically people are asking for it, right? People are coming to wanting that, seeing that I think you have a great mind for knowledge, but I think you have, and I imagine, I'll let you speak to it, but you've got that individualization. And I think it helps you really see people and be able to connect with them. Even though you lead with 6 executing themes, you've got relator and individualization for relationship building. I think that is just such a pivotal thing for the way that you are able to connect with people. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. In fact, so when I think about, I've built teams and, hired a bunch of people, and when I think about doing that, whether it's building the team or hiring somebody, I'm I'm first looking from a team perspective. I'm looking to try to fit the puzzle pieces together. So maybe that's probably some of that arranger in there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So fitting the puzzle pieces together, but then I'm really have always wanted the right people on the team. Not necessarily. I don't like experience is okay, and that's if all else is equal, skill set wise and talents wise, if people have the experience, great. But I'm really looking for talents and certain types of people to bring in, to my team or organization or whatever, because I know just from experience over time, it's that those talents that people have are way more important than the particular experience as long as they have certain competencies. So that I've never really realized, for a long time I never realized how that's what I was doing because that's just how I did it. But
Mm-hmm.
it's really, I look at it from a people perspective first and their individual talents.
Yeah.
I love that Sarah brought individualization into this right away, Jeff. It's number one for me. It's number five for you. It's only number 8 for Sarah. So, I mean, no, we all possess it in our top 10. We all see it. And to be specific, you're not a Gallup Strengths coach. You're a coach of a corporate coach. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm actually in the process of getting the certification now and then plan to get my ACC through ICF as well. So
Yeah.
it's more along those paths.
Gotcha. Well, you just basically did a perfect definition dive of the theme of individualization, finding talents of unique people, putting them and understanding them, getting them in the right spot, reading what they do well, and being able to assess them and put them in the right fit is such a great definition of the individualization theme. And I love hearing it from other people because it so motivates me as my number one. I back it up with developer, where I love hearing other people develop and get better and step in. But from your point of view, hearing it, I'm curious from your other coaching world, not from the Gallup coaching side, how does that individualization and relator for you, that deep connection, how did that maybe play into you becoming that coach, getting those people sent to you? Because I could see that playing out as you said it, right? He knows me. He will literally, I can sit down and talk and it's like he knows me instantly. Do you think that was a big part of that? Hey, I should be a coach. I should step into this.
Yeah, in fact, for me, my natural personality, and Sarah can probably attest to this a little bit because we talk fairly often, is I would rather sit there and listen to somebody and hear their story and find out about them than, tell anybody about mine. And so that's just my natural, that curiosity and that instinct for people. And I think people really appreciate the, being seen and heard that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to point out, as an example for hiring for talent, I recently met with one of your new hires for your leadership team, and they don't have any banking experience. They've had a long, successful career, but none in banking. And I just think that that's so cool. And then when we brought them into the session and looked at them, and in addition to the team grid, which I'm assuming you didn't know this person's CliftonStrengths before you hired them, but they had such good alignment. Your team is very heavy on relator and achiever. And this person had both of those, but they also brought some strategic thinking themes that your team has a little of, but it really was able to strengthen that and build some connections with the other strategic thinkers on your team. And so it's been really fun from my point of view, probably yours too, to see this person be able to come in with a totally different set of experiences, which I think is really valuable. But not all leaders would take the chance of hiring somebody who maybe comes from a different industry into this.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say about that, to give full credit to the folks on my team, I wasn't even completely involved in that hire. It was the other,
Mm,
some of my direct reports, but they think about it the same way. Like,
right.
so as soon as I met the new hire, I mean, I'm like, oh yeah, we got this one right. You can kind of, I don't know, I have this gut instinct thing that happens where I don't know what that is, but you get a good sense right away of folks.
Yeah, I think individualization comes with a gut instinct about people. A lot
Okay.
of people with that, they have a sense about who people are.
Yeah, and I was going to back that up, Jeff, with that's again an absolutely perfect housing around individualization is that your team picked because you
Mm-hmm.
picked the team, right? I
Yeah.
put the right people in the right shoes to be able to make those decisions. And yeah, bring it to me. I'll be able to break it down and see it in my way too. But I selected this other team and I wanted to make sure that they were firing on all cylinders. And now I see that I can trust them because I have individualized them enough to have that faith in what they do.
Yeah, I am lucky enough to work with a lot of great people on my team, and I feel like the best thing I can do as a leader is kind of stay out of their way and just, help them when they need help and remove some obstacles. But they don't need me telling them what to do every day, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
want to talk about what we've been able to do with your team. I had the privilege of just meeting with your team earlier this week, and I was telling Jeff at the end, I was such a proud little mama. I was like standing there and I felt so excited because we've been working together for 2 years pretty consistently. So I would love for you to tell our audience, why did you trust me? Not me specifically, but what was it about Clifton Strengths that intrigued you to devote the time and energy and budget to really getting your team into this strengths-based culture?
Well, I will first say it was you specifically that I trusted.
Oh
Um,
no. Oh
because
God.
I know
Oh.
this
Just
is going the
compliment
wrong
Oh
seeking
direction,
over
no.
Bill. I
here.
know.
Oh no!
I
Look,
know.
the blonde hair just got bigger as the
I
head.
know. I
Right,
know.
Jeff. All right, go
No,
on.
Sarah and I had met and knew each other some, and she specifically was the person I trusted with my team. I'm sure you've talked about Sarah's strengths, but I've told her many times she has I don't know if it's the woo and the responsibility, but she has that rare combination of somebody who is very engaging, but also gets stuff done and is very responsible as well. But so we've worked with Sarah for 2 years and it's been great. My team, as Sarah said, is a bunch of, and it's my leadership team specifically. Well, my leadership team was working with Sarah more in depth, and then the entire team has done some strengths. But my leadership team, particularly, there's 8 of us, and I will say there's several of us that are pretty seasoned and have seen all kinds of assessments, all kinds of things, all kinds of facilitators. And from the first meeting with Sarah, it was like, okay, yep, she's great, and we'll figure out this strength thing, and let's dive in and make it work. Um, we also, when we started this, and I particularly had this mindset, I know Sarah and I talked about it, is, the 2 hour kind of seminar or presentation, those kind of things are great and they're valuable and useful, but we really wanted something more transformational, if you will, and bring strengths as part of the culture. And what I knew, what Sarah knew, what my team knew was this is going to take some work. Like, this isn't easy. This stuff takes work, but you got to do the work to make it worthwhile. And so we've been working with Sarah for a couple years now, and my leadership team meets with her like on a quarterly basis for a offsite, and she coaches individuals both on the leadership team and the broader team. And I mean, strength is part of our conversations now. We have a weekly huddle, and every week in that huddle, one of the leaders brings in a strength and talks about the people on the team that have that strength in their top, and then asks the people to, talk about how that strength shows up. Um, my most senior person came to me about a week or so ago after talking with Sarah, and she's like, I don't know what we pay Sarah, but it's worth every penny because we just had this conversation with an employee that we flipped based on Sarah's recommendation, and it went great. So
Yeah.
so it's been, and the team wants to keep working with Sarah because we continue to find value in it, but it takes work. I mean, you got to commit to it, because if you don't commit to it, you're really not going to get that transformation that
Mhm.
that I think it can provide.
Yeah.
Yeah, your team is so heavy in executing themes. They are the get stuff done people or
Can we
get
cuss on
shit
your pod?
done.
Yeah, I would say, can we
Yeah,
cuss on
I
your
can
podcast?
cuss here. I own this. We do this. I can say a bad word. They're the get shit done people,
Oh God. Oh,
self-claimed. And they do. They are heavy producers. So one of the things we did a high performing team program with them, and we've been doing in-depth strengths stuff with them. And they are always like, how do we use this? How do we bring it to us? Right? Not just the theoretical side of it, not just the application of team building amongst the leadership team themselves, but how do we use it? And so we've really been working on that and implementing it. And I think one of the huge things they caught on to was the using strengths can turn criticism into recognition. And that was one of your team members had sent me an email after we talked about it one day and said, this worked so great because I had someone who's normally a little defensive, maybe harder to give that feedback to. And I flipped it and I said, hey, here are your strengths. Here's what we're seeing. What if you pulled back a little of this, did a little this? And they said it was totally night and day difference of how that person responded to it. And that's what we can do because most of us do crumble, whether we do it visibly or just inside on our souls when people are giving us feedback or criticism. And we need that. We know we need it. We need it for growth. But when it's just so hard to deliver it because most of us aren't trained to do it in a very good way. So we either don't do it and put it off or we send the email. I had a friend the other day who said she was in a meeting on a Friday morning. This is not your team, Jeff. This is someone else. She was in a meeting on a Friday morning and she knew it didn't go well, but she had PTO for the rest of the day and was going like out of town for the weekend. She said her supervisor sent her a message at the middle of the day and said, hey, I want to talk to you on Monday and give you some feedback about that meeting. So then her whole time she's like out at a concert. She cannot stop thinking about the criticism, right? Because that's how the story you tell yourself is I messed up. And now on Monday, my boss is going to yell at me or reprimand me or whatever it is. And I just thought like, oh my gosh, that is such a leadership. No, we do not need to be sending people messages on Friday to say, hey, I'm going to give you some feedback on Monday.
Yeah. And to me, you wonder if that leader did that on purpose or has no clue because that's not the right thing to do there, in my opinion.
Right. And so that's where it's like we need to really practice with our leaders and managers how to deliver feedback that people can actually hear, right? And that's where strengths can come into play. And that was one of those things with your team that I think really stuck for them. And they were like, oh, yes, we can do this. We can do this. And we can become better leaders by seeing what's right about people.
Yeah, that's totally true. In fact, even the leadership team, part of what we wanted to do as, and part of working with you is just build more cohesion and collaboration and closer connection with the leadership team. And they're doing that. Like I have one-on-ones with most all of them. And I hear most of them in conversations talk about, oh, I'm going to talk to this person and I know they have these strengths. So it's like part of the language now that you don't even it's starting to get habitual, which is great, starting to get part of the culture and part of the language. And Bill, to your point earlier on individualization and how I described it, that's probably just from working with Sarah for 2 years is the only reason I knew how to describe
of course. Yeah. And as I hear, as you're building on that ability for your team, but noticeably you to hear and take in what Sarah is coming. By the way, dream client, how amazing is it that you're talking about it frequently, you're communicating it, you're bringing it up. Sarah and I are both fortunate to have several or a couple of clients, several that do it on a regular basis. We just had a podcast released where we have someone that does it daily, and they actually set an intention every morning on let's think about this strength in all of us. And so having that ability is so powerful for you. But in your top 10, I believe 5 or 6 for you is learner, number 6. And I was hearing that as, hey, listening to my cohorts talk about that strength, I'm going to lean into that, or listening to how Sarah brings it out. How does learner play out in that for you? Because I hear it in droves, but I could be wrong here. I would think it's learner, but you tell me.
No, I think you're right. Like any information that's presented, like whether Sarah's presenting or we take back as a team, like I'm trying to absorb it and trying to, I guess, learn from it. Because my feeling is the more I can know, the more I can learn, the better I can be in terms of a leader or how I'm interacting with folks. And so I'm constantly like those conversations, and I'm really learning a lot in the conversations too, and maybe that's the relator aspect of it as well. But I'll pick up
Absolutely.
and read some stuff sometimes, but I'm more interested in learning from those conversations, or that's a richer experience for me, I would say.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm constantly trying to learn. Well, and sometimes people get tired of it because I'm just asking a bunch of questions. I said I'm like a toddler. I'm just going to ask questions the whole time.
But you listen to people's answer. You're not just asking questions for like your own, right? It's not about
Right.
you. You really make the interactions with people, whether it's me or it's one of your people you supervise or it's one of your clients. I just know that you are truly curious to learn about them. So you're asking questions based on what they've said because you're actually listening, which is, I mean, really what we want in our leaders is for them to see us for who we really are.
Yeah, I'm not very good at faking it. And if I'm asking questions, it's because I'm really interested.
That's right. That's right. And that's what makes you so valuable. I'm curious, you have this significance theme. It's your one influencing theme in your top 10. Can you talk a little bit about what that means to you or what it looks like for you?
Yeah, I read some about this and learning some about significance. It kind of sounded to me a little bit grandiose in terms of want to make a big impact on the world or whatever. I think for me, what it really is more individualized, meaning especially in my coaching realm, but also as a leader or in other aspects of my life, if I can make a positive impact on people in some small way, feel like that is how significance comes out for me. I'm curious what you guys think about that though, in terms of, with your experience.
Yeah. So I like that you took the significance end and didn't say, I run with it. I feel this way. I have to roll here. That might be a more normalized significance theme put out really hard, really, really in depth. The fact that you're using it, what we would call from the coaching realm, maturely, which means from a significance point of view, I want to make a significant investment in myself and the people around me. I don't necessarily need my name on a building, but what I do need is people to reference and understand that I will make that call, and hopefully we can rally around that. An insecure usage of that, right, would be I'm making the call and I don't care what you say. Mm-hmm. Right? We're done. We're going that direction. And if I'm speeding the boat towards the shore, here we go. A very mature usage of that, similar to you, may not even see it happening in your world. Like I'm going to set the rudder, but I will take the input from my cohorts, from the other management teams. I will listen to them when it says, let's think about hiring this person. I will accept that input because I am confident enough and mature enough in my significance that I can make that determination and then set the rudder again. That's the subtle difference. And when I hear you explain it, that strikes me as a really mature usage of a theme that can trip some people up.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And
Yeah,
I think it's, oh, go ahead, Jeff.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it's really heavily impacted by your relator and your individualization, because you've really finessed those themes and they're really strong for you. I think it impacts then that significance and how it shows up because you're able to turn it towards the people around you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want my name on a building.
Well, I get it. We do coach some people that want that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. Yeah.
We need names on buildings.
Yep, we do.
Yeah, we see, sometimes we see significance and high self-assurance ramped up pretty high, and that's a coaching opportunity, depending on how they're using it and where they step in. But what I'm curious about, Jeff, you mentioned earlier, a lot of the coaching you do is around imposter syndrome and helping other people with that. Can you touch on for a second imposter syndrome in yourself and how maybe your themes have played out, your Gallup themes have played out towards helping you navigate that either with yourself or other people?
That's a great question. With myself, I think I'm to a point in my life and career where I now, from an emotional intelligence perspective and maybe there's a little relator to myself or individualization that points inward. I can see it coming, and I see it all the time with, people that are constantly working to achieve, which I've got achiever in my top, and, achieve and grow. And every time they hit that new kind of threshold or of growth, that's when they really start feeling that imposter syndrome. And I think for me, I can sense it now, and I know when it's coming. And so, I know when it's there, and I know it's a sign, and I tell this to other people too, it's a sign that you're probably doing some good work that is important to you. So if you can reframe it like that a little bit, and then, look at the strengths to move through it, that's helpful, I found, to people. But also, what I found a lot of people doing, myself included, I mean, Sarah can tell you, I'm terrible at this. I'm a worse celebrator that maybe ever lived. So I'm constantly looking like what I haven't done yet versus what I have done. And that's what I see a lot of other people doing as well. And so kind of helping people look at that. So I'm not sure, I'd be curious what you guys think of what strength of, mine or something I'm drawing on there. But I think it's, relating my own experience to others and understanding that's different for everybody, but kind of trying to bring that in when working with folks with, feeling that imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
I just have to point out your curiosity with us. How many times has he been like, what do you guys think about this? Like, gosh, you are just so good at that.
I think Jeff's trying to get a free coaching session out of you, Sarah, today is what's happening. He's all in. He's
tell me about my top 10, Sarah.
Right. And Jeff, Sarah, I don't know about you. I coach so frequently around the lack of celebration. How often we deal with teams where the manager is just, we did it, let's move on. And the team's like, well, we really hit this one out of the park. Yeah, great. You did your job. Let's go move. Yeah. Right. Even Q12 through Gallup and the engagement sets will tell you how often are you recognizing as part of the metric for how often are you recognizing your people and is it engaging for them? In your question, I really see a lot of your responsibility at play here. Right. My responsibility is I'm setting it. I got to go. I'm putting my name on it. We're going. A high responsibility like yours quite often will do exactly what you're saying, which is I don't need to celebrate the thing we just did because I got a list in front of me of 7 other responsibilities that my name is on and I'm driving for. So when I'm thinking about maybe moving one of your themes out of the driver's seat for a minute and putting it in the passenger seat or maybe in the back seat, or maybe in the trunk, right? Or maybe leaving it at the truck stop for half a day and coming back to get it. That might be responsibility for me, right? Where every now and then you got to let the responsibility drop and acknowledge your team and most importantly, yourself for the things you did and accomplished, because it does mean a lot to you. And I quite often tell people on my teams, you don't have to have pom-poms and dance up and down. Go get your favorite cup of Joe from Starbucks and take half an hour and sit down and contemplate what that meant to them and to you. For me, I see your responsibility at play in that, but there's a couple other themes that would blend in this, Sarah. Something on yours that...
I just have to push back a little bit because I think that Jeff is tremendous at recognizing his people.
Well, you know him better than I do. I think
that his team is not a big celebration team for sure.
Okay.
And most of that leadership team, they are so focused on getting shit done that they are just moving forward like a freight train. So I do have to work with the team about celebrating, but I think that there's a difference between the recognition and the celebration. I think for
Absolutely.
recognition
Yeah.
of seeing the people and what they do and pointing it out, Jeff is supreme at that. Ooh, look at that spray tan line right there.
That's
Ooh.
really good. Really good. Sarah's
Oh,
ready
the
for
YouTube
Mexico
is in
right
for a
now.
treat. Whoa,
Oh,
look at this
man.
one. Sorry.
YouTubers get so much more out of our podcast, don't they? Oh my gosh.
Just a little squirrel train over there. But back to this. I do think you're right, though, Bill, about the responsibility because, Jeff, he is driven by those executing themes. His team is. So while I think his relationship building themes and significance play to recognize people, I don't think that they always want to stop and celebrate. I think it can feel uncomfortable sometimes. And I think you're right. Like it's figuring out what does celebration look like,
Right.
right? And how can we modify that where we don't have to stop and throw a party and have cake, but we can do little things to
Although I
acknowledge
do
what
really
we've
like
done.
cake.
Cake, cake is great.
Cake is good. Yeah.
But it is that I think, Jeff, you were saying like focusing on the gain and not the gap always. And
Yeah.
not only for yourself, but for your team. How can you do that? Because, all those executing themes, they love to charge ahead. What's next? What's next? What's next? But
Yeah.
that's how we get people burnt out is when
Yeah.
we're just constantly pushing for what's next.
Yeah. And Jeff, I would tell you too that I'm throwing a dart at responsibility. Sarah's worked with you for a couple of years. In fairness, that would be where I would lead you to start there and then starting to that's a better coaching modality than me making the assumption it's responsibility. But
You
I
were
would
doing
look
great.
at that.
I think it
know.
was responsibility. I'm not
Oh,
calling you
I
out
do.
for not doing a good
Oh,
job.
no,
I'm just saying.
I wasn't doing that. I just don't want the listeners to go, well, they'll just instantly know and they need to fix it. Actually, the proper procedure is I would start you there, Jeff, and I would say, let's talk about responsibility when you finish that. Then did you move on to the next? Where did you go? It could be a combination of your themes. It could be responsibility. It could be learner. I just want to dump other stuff and go. I don't know yet, but my guess would be that would be where I would start you on the process and be thinking, let's think about setting that back for a moment and what that would look like for you. So that would be the proper coaching end of that.
Well, responsibility does feel right to me. And when you said leave the responsibility at the truck stop for a day, I'm like, oh man, I don't know how to do that.
What a good challenge.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of a good challenge, Jeff, let's put you in the challenge board right now. So
Okay.
we just kind of hit on a couple of ideas around some of your themes. One of the things we ask all the time here is I want to know, when has one of your themes stepped into the dumpster fire? Because so many of them are good, especially we talked about mature usage of significance, individualization, putting people in the right spots. We haven't even touched on belief, which is always a fascinating one for me. I love talking about it, but all of them are great. Can you give us an idea or maybe an instance of when one of them got you in trouble?
Yeah, there's probably mostly on about an everyday basis. There's something, but I would say, this is kind of more so a theme than a specific instance, but deliberative, where sometimes that can lead me astray is if somebody brings me an idea, I will start, even if I like the idea and I want to figure out how to make it work, I'm going to start shooting holes in it. So people will feel like I'm a dream killer on ideas. So I have really had to think about how to do that, but I will say that that's a struggle for me sometimes in the moment, just depending on the situation. So I've got to watch the deliberative when people are bringing me ideas sometimes.
Definitely. And I bet the learner and deliberative together, right? Because the learner's like, oh, I need to know so much about this. And deliberative's like, yeah, we got to make a thoughtful decision here.
Yes.
So that
And the arranger, because I'm going to see how this is going to be put together and work, and I'm going to see all the obstacles. So I'm trying to see the obstacles. Now, a lot of times it is like, oh, this is going to be great. And instead of saying, I think this is great, and leave it at that for now. I'm like, oh, this is great, but what about this, and this, and how are we going to get over those things till we get there? And so then somebody's like, well, screw this, I'm out of here.
Thanks for punching all the holes in everything I thought,
Yeah,
Jeff. Thanks a lot.
yeah,
So
They're
totally.
like, well, you think it's a bad idea. You're like, no, I think it's a great idea. They're like, what?
Yeah. In fact, just the other day, Sarah, when we were meeting the other day, I don't know if you caught it, but when we were doing that coaching scenario, and the one was this person had basically 4 of my 5 strengths in deliberative, and I said something about, yeah, I'm going to shoot holes in the idea, and one of my leaders sitting next to me, she goes, yeah, that's totally you.
Yeah, I did catch that.
how smart is it that the people around you, as you're working with a good coach, as we know Sarah is, can look at your strengths and start seeing it through their eyes, right? That's the holy grail of working with a team and the coaching end of it. Getting you to understand yours is fantastic, incredibly helpful. It bears fruit quickly. But when you start seeing it of your other team members and letting them see it, and they go, yep, and I know why you're doing it, and let's talk about that, that fosters those discussions around exactly what Sarah likes, which is, turning a criticism into some recognition and knowing exactly where you sit. How can I approach Jeff so that I'm not going to take it personally, right? The Q-tip in me, the Q-tip, quit taking it personally, that Jeff is now going to punch the holes in the idea of me quitting coaching and working in a bank because I now want to go work with Jeff. Because I've never done banking, but I want to step into it. And this sounds like a great place to go. Now he's going to punch holes in it. So how do I quit taking that personally, right? And I love the idea of you having that ability, right? So thoughts on that?
Yeah, to your comment around seeing other people's strengths, I think that is the magic because I mean you have to have that in kind of the levels of emotional intelligence, you have to have that self-awareness, but that relational awareness and that's when you start building those relationships and those connections. And when you're doing that in a work environment, that's when the magic happens from a team perspective too.
Yeah,
You can really get
absolutely.
a lot of things done when you understand and trust each other. That's, I mean, and using strengths as we're doing it to get to know each other, then you start building the trust, start building the connection, and then you've all seen it. There's teams where either they don't get along or like they're just afraid to have conversations because the connection isn't strong enough. But as we build that connection, all kinds of conversations can happen in a respectful kind of that from a strengths-based way, so it's a positive way, and it really leads to a lot of growth and success for the team, I think.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough for some of not just the leadership team, but to work with Jeff's whole team. And we did a lot of power of 2 conversations for folks that work really closely together and just sitting down and talking about their strengths profiles side by side. What do you have in common and how does that help you? And how does that sometimes get in your way? And what strengths are super different? And how does that help you? And how does that sometimes get in your way? And having them be able to talk about it. And to just go back to what I said before, I love that Jeff has invested in this for the long haul. And he knows it's not just going to happen overnight because now his team not only can see each other's strengths, but they're really strategic of how they look at it. And you just takes time to do that. What he was referencing with the scenarios, I built some scenarios of common workplace things and said, okay, if you're working with someone, they have these 5 strengths. How do you think they respond to this situation? And then we would have, okay, now this person has these 5 strengths. How would they respond? And to hear his team out loud process together, well, this person might have a lot of questions and this person might want to run really fast. That's a level that we love to see. It's so powerful when they can start thinking like a coach, but it doesn't happen overnight. You can't have a one-time 3-hour strengths workshop and get there. It takes time to know yourself, to start to understand the themes, to start to how they show up for people. But if you're willing to take the time to invest in your people in this way, I mean, I think Jeff's team is a perfect example of the sort of superpower it allows you to have in actually seeing your people for who they are, anticipating what they might think so you can be more prepared when you go to them, and just be, really intentional about those interactions and respect people for the talents that they have.
Wow, Jeff.
I did it. I did it. I
there she
sometimes
went.
just stand on a
We talked
soapbox and
about it.
say a lot of things.
We talked about it this morning. She goes from the I just want to chat. Let's do, and then bang, she hits you with the good stuff, right? We get we have those moments of real clarity, and there it is. I absolutely love that. And Sarah, this highlights too a difference in coaching styles. By the way, Jeff, thank you for glossing over not offering me a job. I really appreciate it. I thought we were getting in there, but
the world is a better place if you're coaching, Bill. Think of the impact you're making.
See, there he is, punching the hole right there. Good point. A difference in coaching quite often when I have a larger group, we'll be doing a strengths discovery. So Sarah did it with you and a team that is really aware of strengths. But quite often, if I have let's say 40 people in a room and it's their first kind of dive into this, quite often I'll get them halfway through the day and I'll get them talking about their strengths. And then I'll put up on the board, you guys want to do this for real? You want to talk about it? We've hypothetically hit some ideas around what these mean. Do you guys want to try it? And they'll, of course, well, yeah, I want to do that. And I'll put up on the board 5, and I'll say, how would you approach this person for a job or for something you want to do or to move and to do that? And unlike you, Sarah, now they don't have that depth yet, but I'm getting them to think about it. And well, I might, that's this, that's here. And then I put up 6 through 10 and say, okay, does it change now? Talk about, I want to know how you might approach them for the same project, but how does that pivot? And then they see that. And just like you said, listening to them break it down, discuss it with each other, share ideas. Maybe you need to approach so-and-so to give you an idea on how to do this a little better. And then at the end of that, I don't tell them up front. By the way, that's the CEO of your company. Yeah. Not only did we just do it for real, but if you want to approach your boss, your ultimate boss, or the boss in the room, which generally we have placards up, somebody might get it, look around and be like, oh, and but generally not. And then, hey, there you go. And this whole time, the boss has been listening to how I might approach this person. So it makes a really good impact. I love that you do it with an established team, Sarah. I don't normally have that process in there, so I'm stealing that from you again. I love it.
Well, and I love that you're just throw people into the deep end. It sounds like it works. We're all learning here, listening and learning.
Yeah.
One thing I like about that approach, Bill, is I think sometimes on the initial 2 or 3 hour session, people don't understand how they can practically apply it. So I think doing that, people will realize how they can practically apply it.
Yeah, exactly right. I'd say after the first year of doing what I was doing, I really got hit with that from a lot of responses we did from teams. How do I practically approach it? What's next? So we actually integrated it into our strengths discovery sessions just to give them some real world tools, thought processes. And we don't do it at the very end because people are getting a little tired and, we want to build on that, but we do it later in the day so they do have a general idea of those themes. And then that gives them some ideas. And inevitably someone at the end is going to ask me, well, I'm curious, how do you approach someone with this theme? So it sparks that inquiry and component of, I really want to know about this, which is nirvana for us as coaches. We can step in now and keep building on the question.
Yeah. Speaking of questions, Jeff, I have a question for you.
Okay.
You've been hired to teach a group of penguins how to dance. How do your strengths guide your teaching style?
Okay.
Jeff.
Well,
dancing, Jeff.
Yeah,
Let's
this
hear
is great.
Yeah.
So the first thing that's going to happen is responsibility is going to be pissed at deliberative and saying, what were you doing, sleeping? Why did we get hired to do this? Why did you say yes?
He's punching holes in teaching penguins to dance. I love it.
So, no, I think, so let's see here. So we signed up, we're hired, so we got to do it now because the responsibility is saying we have to do it. I think probably first, individualization and a ranger and a learner are kind of sitting back looking at the group of penguins and kind of getting a sense for what's going on there a little bit. And then maybe we'll find the lead penguin. There's going to be some alpha penguin or some penguin that's kind of leading the group, and maybe relator or ranger will kind of an individualization kind of talk to them a little bit, see if they can help us kind of lead the group. So we have, they get that and have a little. The other group of penguins has their own kind of built-in leader for that dance, and so we got to get them organized. I imagine it's going to be like herding cats a little bit. So. Maybe through the discipline part can do that. If all else fails, I'll just call like Danny Kaye when how he did it with Mary Poppins.
So good. Wow. So,
Excellent.
the guy just rocked through a majority of his themes to talk about penguins, including individualization, which if you're teaching a whole group to dance, I could have never brought that in. So good. I'm picking the alpha apex penguin, and that's where I'm teaching. We're starting there, and then we're building from that.
And who knows?
Wow.
I'm probably not saying yes to that job in the first place, though.
Somebody else volunteered you for that.
Unbelievable. I will tell you, Jeff. I've been to Antarctica. As a scientific group, I was big in science when I was at the university early on in my career. So I've been to Antarctica. And you're right. You're going to pick the alpha, but one of the funniest things about the penguins are when they're standing there, when a jet flies overhead, they all stare at it and they keep staring and looking up, and then they all fall over. And it's like a mass wave because they just don't. They're like, "What is that?" And then boom, they all. So you've got a long uphill battle to get them to step and dance. I think it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. I don't know about
freestyle. Just lean on the freestyle.
Can I ask you? I'm asking you guys several questions, but take advantage of both of you here for a minute.
Absolutely,
because the belief thing is interesting to me too. Bill, I know you mentioned that. Like, I want your opinion on this. Here's how I think belief shows up for me. Is I have a strong gut instinct a lot, and I can feel like if something like it feels right or it doesn't feel right. And if it feels right, I learn to listen to that. If it doesn't feel right, like, is that belief? Is that what that is, you think?
Sarah, you want me to jump in here?
I want you to jump in, yeah.
So for me, right, that belief is that founding interest. I often quote it, and this is why I love talking about it, because it's very low for me. I don't do this well. Belief people tend to stick their flag in the sand, and you're going to have to convince me to move it. And it's going to take a lot of convincing. I do not want to move this flag. So I will stand by a hardened commitment that I have. And I don't know, sometimes it's a religion out, it's religion outside. It used to be called faith in Gallup, and they changed it to belief because of the religious connotation. But it does certainly show up from a religious point of view sometimes, that my belief is I am faith-based, highly religious, right? I'm sticking by that. Sometimes it is business-based, and I believe this is where we're going and how we're doing it. So that may play out a little in that feeding the responsibility side for I have some pretty good belief in this is where we're going. Without working with you, I don't know where it stands up for you, but just that ability to really stand by and defend is being fueled by the belief, whether it's learner or responsibility in your case. And I would say, again, just the fact that you were willing to take input and change that flag some and move it around would lead me to believe you're pretty mature in your usage of belief. Because I have coached people with belief really high, and man, they will not. No, I don't. No, I will not change this opinion, and it can be tough. It can be a hard coaching end until you really convince them, hey, maybe we need to consider some other options.
You've mentioned a couple of times, which I appreciate, some of them using maturely, but I think that is probably just because you get to a certain age and you either do that or you don't, and you've learned the hard way a lot of times.
Well, and you do a lot of personal growth and development, so you've been working on yourself for a long time. It's not like you've just been working and ignoring your growth. You're working on it. I think that belief is a tricky one, but I think it is good to figure out what is, as Bill says, that flag in the sand for you. Because it's usually, I find with people, pretty specific. I actually just was working with a leader last week who had it. And she kind of was like, well, I don't really see it. And as we dug around and I asked her some questions, what we found out was she has a lot of relationship building, influencing themes. And she works she's a doctor, she has patients. So she's like, people can talk to me however they want and I'm fine with it. Like, sometimes we get people who are grumpy or whatever. It's fine. Like, I don't care. But she's like, we've had 2 instances where we've had patients who have said some inappropriate things to our staff. And I draw a hard line there. And I told them, you will not talk to my staff that way. You are fired as a patient. You cannot come here anymore. She's like, if they would have said those same things to me, I wouldn't have cared. But you do not treat my people that way. And so for her, that belief was the way that people, the people that she employs, that she has in her circle, she will defend them and won't tolerate inappropriate behavior. And so it was, and I could see, and this is usually a clear sign for me when I'm coaching someone with belief. You can usually identify it when someone hits that tender spot and it triggers you to be like, no. Like, what is a hard and fast no? Like, flag in the sand, line in the sand of like, not acceptable.
Yeah. And Jeff, I am so happy you brought up age because... So belief is 27 for me. It's 18 for Sarah. I hate to do this because Sarah knows how amazing she is anyway, but you hear the commitment and belief in Sarah when she talks about coaching and when she is right. She is there. She will defend it. She knows where she's at. It doesn't come through as pure belief for her or me. We are pretty committed to what we do. We do it in other ways. We may not have that deep-seated, I can defend it with a sword and stand by it component, but we still have a good belief system that we want to rally around. For you in the belief, it's just deep-seated. It's there. It's just below the surface, and like Sarah just gave you an excellent example of a person that said, no, actually, it's all fine. No, not that. It's all great. It's all great. No, not that. And that's that follow through of belief.
Yeah, interesting. And actually what Sarah said resonates with me because I can be fairly protective of those in my circle. So that's probably part of it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. That relator at number 1, that all tracks out.
Yeah, very much so. Awesome. And what a great question from Jeff. I mean,
I know. I just knew he would be a great guest. Jeff, I'm just tickled and delighted that you came here today. And what a great Friday. I know you might be listening on a different day, listener, but for us, it's a Friday. I'm on the cusp of vacation and or throwing up. So who knows what's going to happen. But
with great blonde hair and a spray tan.
Well, just
you are rocking it. So
yeah, don't get any puke in that new hair.
No, fingers crossed.
Jeff, come on. I mean, look at that hair. How do you? I can't compete with that, right? That's
I know.
just so good. So, Jeff,
are so nice.
Jeff, you have been an absolute joy today. Thank you very much for joining us. We're gonna honor your time and get you back to the bank so that you can punch some holes in some other theories and ideas other people may have.
Yes.
We want to make sure you're right on top of that and then set the rudder in a very mature way, which I know you do. Again, when you need a mid to upper level director that has some coaching acumen and willing to move, you just,
How are you going to do a banking job around all the golfing?
Bankers golf. Don't think.
Not in my group, Bill, because we get shit done.
That's right. Not.
All right. Well, now I'm out.
Not the team for you.
I mean, I want to make a difference, but it's got to be with a 7-iron in my hand. So, all right, I get it. Jeff, thank you so much. You've been an absolute joy.
Well, thank you both. I really appreciate it and had a great time and had a lot of fun and just appreciate you asking me to be part of this and thank you.
Yeah, you are welcome. And with that, we're going to say goodbye. We will talk to our arsonists on the next episode of Strengths on Fire. So thanks for listening, and we'll talk soon. Thank you for joining us on Strengths on Fire. If today's conversation sparked something in you, be sure to subscribe, share, and leave a review. We're here bringing you fresh insights to fuel your growth and ignite your potential. Remember, your strengths are powerful, so let's keep the fire burning.
And if you're looking to transform your organization through strengths-based strategies and coaching, reach out to Sarah Collins, founder of Collins Collective, or Bill Dipple, founder of Bill Dipple Strengths Coaching. Connect with Sarah at wearecollinsco.com, follow her on Instagram at sarahcoachcollins, or email her at sarah@wearecollinsco.com, SARAH. You can reach Bill at billdipple.com, Bill, DIPPEL.com, or on Instagram at Bill Dipple Coach, or email him at bill@billdipple.com.
Please note the opinions, views, and interpretations of Clifton Strengths expressed in this podcast are solely those of the hosts and the guests. They have not been approved, sanctioned, or endorsed by Gallup in any way.
Until next time, keep your strengths on fire and let's light up what's possible together. Bye, Bill.
Bye, Sarah.